Welcome, Leo, to your high voltage Mars square Pluto deep dive video from May the 22nd through to the 30th. One of astrology's most turbulent, intense, and powerful influences reaches its climax exactly on the 26th. The square between Mars and Pluto is when they're exactly at 90 degrees, which causes a tremendous amount of tension. But what would it mean for you personally, Leo? On the screen is the event chart from a purely Leonian viewpoint. I'm going to unpack this for you, and by the end of the video, you'll have the best idea of how to navigate this in terms of your energy, work, relationships, or finances. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundel. A very warm welcome. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please do so now, but please also click or tap the bell notification symbol. Mars and Pluto are the two co-rulers of the very deep sign of Scorpio. But at the present time, Mars is in the most visible part of your chart, the 10th house, Leo, very much how you connect to the world at large. But it also gives you an awesome opportunity to strut your stuff in a much more assured and visible way. But Pluto is in the part of your chart very much to do with relationships. And the transformation that Pluto can bring is going to be ongoing for many years to come. But Mars is the ruler, the sole ruler of the sign of Aries. Here he's very much more to do with our identity, our sense of self, if you like, our ego. But it can be about action, initiation, passion, courage, but also it can be about frustration, and it can be also our fight for survival in the most extreme cases, of course, war. Pluto, that planet of transformation, gives us an opportunity to move on from where things come to a close and to rebirth. But it can also be about obsession, but it can be about things that have been hidden. So, how are they going to interact in these two zodiac signs? Well, Mars in the sign of Taurus has a great appreciation of the value of things. That can be about ourselves, can be about possessions, it can be about money, but it can be quite security conscious. It's not so impetuous as it is through its rulership of Aries. But Pluto in the sign of Aquarius, Pluto is the planet of the collective, but the sign of Aquarius is about how we connect collectively. But for you, that airy energy of Aquarius is asking you to think deeply, Pluto, about how you connect to others, where you set your boundaries, but also what you need in terms of your personal relationships of all kinds. So, how do they interact on this event for you? Well, Mars is pushing you at the moment to show a lot more self belief and also to be very confident about your goals and ambitions. But that may mean that you're going to encounter someone through this last 10 days of May, particularly who could resent this desire for you to seize the center stage, to gain more recognition, to raise your profile, to be more successful, to chase the targets that are important to you. So if it's in a personal relationship sense, there may be a huge amount of resentment that could come into the open if your partner or family members or friends just think you're far too focused on what's important to you as far as those hopes are concerned. But equally, it may be that in a professional situation, there's some kind of battle of wills going on, and it may be with a rival, because the seventh house isn't just about relationships. It can be about, in traditional astrology, open enemies. And Pluto, of course, can be the great revealer. So we don't always know, because it's very much the power broker of the zodiac, exactly what's going to show up with Pluto. So there could be a big transformation where maybe a line manager or a boss is pushing you to be more ruthless as far as coming into contact with your competitors or colleagues, and that could feel uncomfortable. Equally, if you have your own business, you may have people working for you who are not understanding the pressures and strains that the business is under, and you're having to be uh, be tougher about really being firm about your personal boundaries. So really, the potential for tension over these next 10 days is enormous. But how do you deal with this? How do we navigate this in a way which can still be beneficial? Well, first of all, we need to look at the role of your ruler, the sun, because ironically, the sun in the chatty sign of Gemini, which is very much to do with communication, in the 11th house for you, it can be about group contacts, can be about your friendships, but it can be about your long-term plan. But the sun, ironically, is in a brilliant link with Pluto, suggesting if you're aligning with the right people, this actually could be an event where people really give you lots of support. So even if you are under pressure or someone isn't being as collaborative as they could, there can be other people who will try to give their energies into helping you to negotiate this. But we also have the moon in an air sign too, in the sign of Libra, which is very much about balance. But for you, it's in the very quick, chatty third house. So if we think about the angle of the Sun to Pluto and Pluto back to Venus and back to the Sun, we have a grand air trine. So one of the things that's going to be incredibly important through this last phase of May is to try to keep the lines of communication open. Because Taurus and Aquarius are both fixed signs, like you are, there can be a tendency to resist change. So if your professional situation is shifting, and maybe it is to do with the technology that's coming in to every part of the world, the desire to maintain what you know because you're familiar with it, that Taurus energy can make us rather stubborn, won't necessarily be the best way to deal with what could be inevitable change. And that's why talking to other people, taking soundings, trying to get their different viewpoints can be so valuable in order to deal with this transit. But we also have Saturn, the planet of structure but limitation, in an opposition with the position of the moon. So it may mean that you'll have to think very carefully before you have those discussions. It's not just about being frivolous, it's about really thinking through what you're wanting to achieve, particularly because Venus, the planet of relating, and the ruler of the sign of Taurus, is sheltered in your 12th house. So confidential discussions, even about your professional situation, or it could be about your romantic situation. If there is a shift of power and energy between you and a partner, talking to someone you can really trust, perhaps in a confidential way, could be very, very helpful indeed. Now, ironically, Venus and Mars are in a terrific angle. And also, we have a great link between Mars and the North Node. So there are definite benefits in this chart. The progression that we're all going through, particularly in terms of automation, robotics, AI, artificial intelligence, it's just inevitable, isn't it? So if we dig our heels in, we could create extra tension rather than trying to flex and flow with things. And that's what this Gemini energy in particular can help us with. So I'm going to summarize those four areas of energy, work, relationships, and finances next for you. But just to say, I've slashed the price of my personal horoscope reports. You can now get three for the price of one. The one you pay for is your life roadmap report. Helps us to understand the patterns that are played out in our lives so far, get a more intimate understanding of them, and how to work with them better future forwards. The free charts is your 12 months transit forecast, totally unique to you, along with your unique draconic analysis. That's our soul karmic chart. In your natal chart, if your North Node is not late in Pisces or early in Aries, your draconic chart could be very different from your natal chart. It helps us to look at life, ourselves, and astrology in a fresh but very powerful way. Please see below for more. If you've yet to watch your Mars 6 weeks deep dive forecast, that's on the screen. If you've yet to watch your Gemini season 1 month forecast, that's on the screen. If you'd like to work with me one-to-one, please see my testimonials below. It will be an absolute pleasure. I work with people the world over. And if you've yet to take advantage of my free daily written horoscope, fire to your device each morning for your early day celestial pit stop, you can sign up for that below too. So to summarize, as far as your professional situation is concerned, your willpower at the moment can be incredible, and that could see you see off challenges, overcome challenges in a way that could may not be easy, but your tenacity and desire to win through can be enormous. But it's also important to understand when things are just as they are, and that could be the change of working practices, and that's where it's very important to be flexible and make sure that you're being open to new ways of doing things, but most of all keeping the lines of communication open in a big way. As far as your energy is concerned, with Venus and Jupiter in your 12th house, despite a lot of the planets in your chart being right at the top in the northern hemisphere, there may be a need. It's always interesting with the 12th house in the northern hemisphere because it is a very sheltered area, but it's a very visible area in terms of looking at astrology that way. But there may be some times that you will want to, before the end of the month, just take a few moments to step back into your own space. As far as your romantic situation is concerned, there may be an attraction that is developing at work, and it may be one that you want to keep somewhat confidential. But in an existing relationship, I do feel there could be a bit of a tussle. If one of you wants to be more sociable, for example, and the other one doesn't, that could show up as a difference of opinion. Also, know that the potential to develop some kind of fascination with someone. Pluto can be about obsession, and Venus is in your 12th house. You could start to become more conscious of someone's energy, even if there's been no conversation so far. As far as finances are concerned, having the North Node, which is really urging you to trust the process as far as your instincts, in a very strong link with Mars, and also Venus, the planet of money, in a strong link with Mars too. That's really good. I think your finances generally can improve, particularly with Venus and Jupiter coming into a fantastic conjunction early in June. But I think your finances can improve, but perhaps most of all, where you can be collaborative in your approach. It's been a real pleasure being with you, Leo. Thank you so much for joining me. Wishing you all the best and look forward to seeing you again soon.